the Friendlyjordies Podcast. Minus Friendlyjordies, unfortunately. He is in the room. He's actually in this studio at the moment, but he's sick.
He's asleep, I think.
So he's sleeping, and also we don't want to get sick, so we kind of told him to take the night off.
Yeah, we just said, take a breather, mate. You haven't earned it, but go for it anyway.
Haven't earned it. So he's sick. It's kind of going round, and...
So you got Shawarma FM.
So you got Shawarma FM. See you guys next week.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and join the Patreon.
Jordan will be there next time, so make sure you do join the Patreon. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for hang around anyway, won't you?
Yeah, hang around anyway.
And I really can't wait. I really look forward to the YouTube comments that say, "These guys suck. It's shit when there's only two of them. Where's the other guy?" Can't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean, look. I'm used to it now.
That's why I do this. I don't do it for the
first
conversation or the accolades or the payment. I do it for the like undertoning, like passive aggressive comments on YouTube. That's why I do this.
Dude, okay, so first segment.
Yeah.
And the only segment.
Jesus.
Are you excited for Ridley Scott presents Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix?
Boom, 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 boom.
Do you hear the music? Whatever.
Yes. I'm fucking excited. I mean, hey, I am very excited. I saw the ads. I'm like, this looks sick. I was telling Ali off air that it's like, I feel like those days of blockbuster movies, and they still exist. You get your Top Gun and all that, but like period piece historical movies with a huge star and like a huge director like Ridley Scott. Dude, I'm pumped as. And it honestly looks really good.
Dude, I'm glad you are, because no one's talking about it like they were with Oppenheimer and shit.
I'm way more excited for this than Oppenheimer.
I watched the trailer.
And I've
been so excited about the fucking movie that I've spent the last 3 days just reading up on Napoleon. And that's why I wanted to bring up this segment, because I wanted to talk to you guys about Napoleon.
I would love to be filled in, because this is what I know about. I just found out he's French, and I know
He's not. I mean, depends what you qualify as French, but he is from Corsica. Do you know Corsica?
No.
Corsica is like a little island just at the tip of France.
Really?
Throughout history, they've never considered themselves to be French.
There you go.
In fact, it was Napoleon's dad's generation, where the French had basically taken over Corsica and made it French.
Holy shit.
And so he was the first generation to be considered French. But even if you were from Corsica, like for example, Napoleon had a thick southern French accent.
Really?
And French was his second language.
They have as Corsicese?
Yeah, whatever it is.
That's awesome. So it's like the Basque in Spain. Yeah.
In fact, there's like a whole thing. Anyways, like I've been sort of into the Napoleon's rabbit hole. But all right, let's start with that, because he's not French. So Corsica.
I'm very keen, because all I know about him is he wore a big hat. So I'm keen.
Yeah, he was when he was a kid. He wrote actually a fair bit of essays and sketches when he was like between the age of like want to say like around 12 to 17.
Okay.
Yeah, like those little scribbles, which ended up like obviously people reading it because he was Napoleon.
Yeah.
But like it's filled with like contempt for France. He's saying like how his dad was like a Corsican aristocrat. And so he talks about like how his dad sold out and how the French took over and like, subjugated us Corsicans or whatever the term is. But then like something crazy happens which makes him French later on. Because if you look at him 20 years later, he symbolizes being French in some sense.
Yeah.
And there's a debate about it. There's one theory that the French Revolution and the revolutionary fervor had hit him so hard, and the idea of France had transformed so much that he became very French, and he was like, yeah, this is like an agenda that I could get behind.
Right.
The second theory is he was just an opportunist, and he like when he was a kid, he was like, when he got older and he realized that he could become really powerful, all of a sudden he was like, I want to be really for French. Like you,
Right.
it's like it's kind of like me. Okay, if I came to Australia and then I wanted to become the prime minister, all of a sudden,
Can you, by the way?
Like no.
Yeah,
what do you
right.
mean?
Well, you have to be born here.
No, you don't have to be born here.
So you
Legally,
could be.
you can. Yeah,
Oh, cool,
I
cool.
could.
I should know
You have
that.
to be a citizen.
Gotcha.
Dude, Tony Abbott was born in England.
That's right. It's America where you can't.
In America, you can't.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah,
In
yeah.
America, you can't.
I'm once again confusing
But like pretty
our
much everywhere
countries.
else in the world, you kind of can,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
long as you're a citizen.
Yep.
So it's someone like me, right? Like if I want to be the prime minister in Australia,
Yep.
and I'm Paki,
Yep.
with like an accent as well,
Mm.
what am I doing? I'm working hard to firstly prove how Australian I am. So I might join the
Bunnings.
fucking military or some
Bunnings
shit.
snacks.
I'd be like shoving Bunnings snacks without putting any barbecue sauce on it.
Hey, that's not Australian.
No, Australians like tomato. No
Oh,
barbecue.
yeah. Gotcha.
Definitely not mustard.
I would put mustard, but yeah,
I
you're not
would
allowed.
too,
You're not
but
allowed to.
I'm
you
not
know. It's
trying
not.
to be the prime minister.
Put it this way: there's no mustard. There's no choice for mustard at Bunnings. There's no choice.
No, some of them do.
Do
Some
they?
of the fancier ones, they do.
Okay.
They put mustard there as well. Anyway, so like I would want to try to be as Australian as possible, like kind of like Vivek Ramaswamy is. He's like,
Oh yeah.
he's like he wants to change.
Howdy,
that rule.
y'all.
He wants to change the rule of like how you know, if you're born in the U.S. you become a citizen.
Oh, he wants to. Yeah.
He wants to change it, and then like they were saying like dude, it was actually funny. I felt bad for him
Why?
because I was watching. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked.
No,
I
no,
promise
no.
I'll get back.
We have
to
a lot of
Napoleon.
time. Don't worry.
But it was like kind of sad watching an interview of him, and he was being grilled by some reporter,
Yeah.
and she was saying like, when you were born in the U.S., were your parents citizens? And he was like, no, they were not. They were not citizens. And I don't know if that matters. Like, no, that's not the point. So you're saying that you became a citizen because you were born here, and you want to change this rule?
All right.
And he was like, and so she was really questioning him like about his Americanness.
Yeah.
And then you could see his face like get really nervous, and then like his accent morphs back into an Indian one. He's like,
Get fucked.
yeah, no, I'll show you this
But
video.
give me. So
I'll
what?
look for it.
But why wouldn't it have morphed more into a like Yankee Doodle?
You think that?
Yeah.
It normally is, but like at
Defense
that point
mechanism?
he was nervous.
Defense
And
mechanism?
so his real Indian was coming out.
Oh, really? So
Because he was being attacked for being like, you know, not being attacked.
You know,
I
it'd be
mean,
really funny if she said that and he started just going.
he basically
No.
did, bro. You could see like his accent, and then as soon as he took control of the situation again, his like full American accent returned. Anyways, that's the sort of shit that would happen. So
Yeah.
Napoleon was in that boat. Napoleon had a very thick non-French accent. It was like Southern French accent, which is considered to be like, you know, the outsider.
Gotcha.
You're not like, you know, proper.
Wait, wouldn't it have been northern France? You said it was in the north of France, the island.
No, South.
Oh, you said north.
South.
And
South.
okay, so it's in the south.
It's in the South.
Gotcha.
Corsica's in the South.
Sorry, gotcha.
It's towards the Italian border. So if
Yes.
Corsican French, which is now considered to be French as well, is actually closer to Italian than it is to
Gotcha.
France.
Yeah, something just beeped, but we still.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we should be good.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
so what I'm saying is like, so his personality sort of like changed dramatically over the next decade, where he became like this symbol of French, and then, you know, his entire thing. He always talked about like, and in later life, while he was when he was exiled and he was on that island, he would talk about like how the idea of him being from Corsica is not even true, because he went to like school in France, and like, you know, he's from there, but like, you know, your school really matters. So he's like constantly trying to like
Justify.
he doesn't want to be remembered as like a Corsican,
Yeah.
which is in direct contrast to his like early writings where he was like saying fuck the French. Anyway, that's not the point. So the cool thing about Napoleon was he wasn't that great,
Right.
because he's sort of like pitched as like, you know, this amazing general who revolutionized military tactics,
Right.
which they're right about. But I don't think, after like doing a bit of research, I don't think that Napoleon gets the credit for this. So what had happened was, how cool is this? So the French Revolution happens, right? And then all of a sudden, in a matter of instance, the nobility is like gone.
Monarchy's out.
And monarchy's out, and even the nobles, the aristocrats.
Weren't they getting killed by guillotine? They were smashing.
Yeah, they were. Some of them were, but some of them,
Beheaded.
like, you know, like the king was and stuff. But there was like a whole class of people, right, that were nobles that all of a sudden one day they stopped being nobles. So a fair few of them actually left France after that.
Right.
And some of them stayed, but then they just became like, the citizens or whatever.
Yeah.
So what happened as a result was that the French army, in order to be an officer, you had to be a noble. So you essentially had about 70 to 80% of the officers that were from the French nobility, right? And then this whole French Revolution happens, and then all of a sudden, that's gone. In a matter of 5 years, you went from being 70% French noble to being 97% non-noble.
Shit.
And this had profound effect on the French military.
Right.
So what had happened was that because all of them left, this new cadre of people had come in, and they were younger too.
Right.
This is the post-revolution French military personnel. They were like regular folks that all of a sudden become officers, which was really good for meritocracy. Because, imagine if all of the army's positions were reserved just for the nobility, you're not going to get nobles to be the best army officers all the time.
Yeah.
The odds are a lot of it is just nepotism, right? Because you're not supposed to be there. And it had whole host of differences. For example, the French military before the revolution and before this change of the officer cadre, they all had so there'd be an officer, and each officer would have at least 7 animals and 7 people accompanying them in a war, because there'd be one horse for just pots and pans, 1 mule for just carrying the food that they were taking.
Yep.
And then there was a lot of this shit. But so what happened was once the nobles went away, the regular people came and they didn't have as many demands. So all of a sudden your cavalry just became really light, and so you were easily able to move and shit.
Oh, so it became almost how can you put it, a coincidental strategic advantage.
And that's Napoleon's life, coincidental strategic advantage. So this sort of shit was happening, and not just this, and Napoleon just became Napoleon. And so what happened was, once the revolution happened, a lot of these other countries Prussia, Austria, that were still nobility and royal, and they felt really threatened, kind of like how after the Second World War, after communism, everyone was just afraid of communism, that this is going to come into our country. So they were afraid of the French Republic system. There were 2 countries in the world that were republic at the time. There was the Americans, who had fought the Revolutionary War a few years before, and then the French, and the rest of them were all about the idea that God has made you king, and
monarchy
power is a birthright, and all that shit. So they were really afraid of this French Republic experiment. So they wanted to quash it immediately. Basically, overthrow people that had killed the king, execute them, and put in a king back into his position, so that they can make Europe stable, whatever stability was, because they were constantly fighting anyways, even with kings. So this was the backdrop. So immediately after the revolution, there was a bunch of military men that gained huge popularity because of this perceived aggression from the rest of the Russia and Prussia and shit. Not just Napoleon, but a lot of generals became really prominent. So it was a matter of time before one of these generals takes over the whole country.
Wait, so Napoleon came up in the military after the revolution?
Yep, right after the revolution. Right after.
Interesting.
And while there were seismic changes happening.
You could say the Logan Paul of French revolutionaries.
Logan Paul. Jake Paul. The Logan Paul lost out.
Okay, but that's interesting. So he was kind of seen as the young rebel or something.
Yeah, he was seen as this young, enterprising military commander.
Gotcha.
And they were winning.
For the common people.
For the common people.
Cool.
And so there were other generals that were also winning decisive victories because of this change in the military. So the one thing that Napoleon should get credit for, which he certainly was the only one who did it, that helped it, it's not that he was creative and he added new things to the art of war. because like I said, it was just a matter of like, you had a strategic advantage that was kind of like you fell onto it as a consequence of the revolution.
Yeah.
So no one really organized for this. But what Napoleon was really good at was he created these amazing systems within the military.
Right.
So for the first time in history of warfare, they divided the military into like infantry, corps, armored battalions,
Right.
engineers, this whole separate system.
Right.
First time in history.
Fuck.
It hadn't been done before. And as a result, the French army all of a sudden had this extreme advantage among the great power competition in Europe, where they would go into like, they defeated Russia, they defeated Germany, they defeated Austria.
Really?
They were on a roll.
Whoa.
And so all of a sudden Napoleon had gotten this like immense popularity. And,
Right.
and he had also become the emperor by them. He proclaimed himself to be the emperor of France. Funnily enough, 4 or 5 years after the revolution, which was about how there shouldn't be like these nobles.
Yeah.
But he was really, really popular and he was winning.
Wow.
France, like
Winner.
he was
Napoleon is a great man.
He was
winner.
He was definitely a winner. And like if you look at like French history pre the revolution, it was the France had just become like this fucking backwaters of Europe by that point. Like
This is like Marie Antoinette time.
I don't know what the timeline for
Yeah.
Marie Antoinette is.
But
But
you
like
know that
just before it, like I remember like ages ago I was reading this account of the first Indian who ever went to Europe. This was a few years before the French Revolution.
what's his name? Sadhguru.
He'll be the last because once he shows up, people know to stay away.
He rode in his motorbike.
Dude, he had like this. By the way, this guy, the first Indian to ever go into
Gandhi.
go to Europe.
Was it
had
Gandhi?
These hilarious observations.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like he
Well,
said.
France. Let's be honest. Europe has some weird cultural norms. Like,
No, but he was saying like. I'll tell you about him
Well,
because like
yeah.
his like, but I want to tell you like
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
of his like really funny observations. So
Tell
one
me,
of them,
tell me,
he was
tell
like,
me.
when he got on the ship, he's like, I can definitely say that the ocean is far more than 20 feet deep. And the Alexander theory that it does not go beyond 20 feet, I can assure is wrong. And if
Whose
and
theory
my according to my research, it is limitless. There is no floor.
I mean, he's pretty much right.
He's
That
funny,
like
yeah.
limitless is a lot more accurate than 20
20
feet.
feet, yeah,
That's-
yeah.
Who said it was 20 feet?
I think he said Alexander was saying it was 20 feet. I don't even know if Alexander said it, but
It's
he
like a-
thinks that Alexander said that it was
right.
20 feet.
Like the Greek.
And so he's saying it's definitely more than 20 feet.
Good
And
opposite,
he's saying
yeah.
that it's definitely it's also limitless.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he goes to like he goes to Europe, right? He goes through France.
Yeah.
And he talks about France in such contempt.
Really?
He says it's a place of extreme poverty.
Yeah.
There's like extreme stratification in society.
That was all of Europe, wasn't it?
He does not say that about England. He goes to England and he says England is amazing.
Really?
He says like England is great. This is like
His review of London was like my review. I'm like, it was sick.
yeah. He genuinely thought he was sick. He
Right.
first he again funny observation. He goes to like a show,
Yeah.
like one of these like plays, right? You know these old timey Shakespearean style plays.
Yeah.
And he says it is. These are his observations. It is quite mind boggling that over here people actually pay to watch the art as opposed to just having an entire cast that does it for pennies.
Wow.
And he's sitting in the Coliseum
That's
style
cool.
like stadium arena.
Yeah.
And he is saying the most bizarre thing happens. Every time the audience likes something that they see, they take both of their hands and they smash them together.
Creating some sort of thunderous like
Yeah,
sound.
he's literally saying that. And he's like, which is quite in contrast to India where when we like something, we just go, shabash, shabash.
I'm with the French in this one, but that's
Yeah,
interesting. Okay,
And he also
yeah.
he has this observation. The only positive thing he had to say about France was he walks in and he sees what he later on and we now understand to be ice skating.
Oh yeah.
But he looks at them and he's like, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Fuck yeah.
It was like angels
Yeah.
gliding on ice.
Yeah, I mean it kind of is.
Yeah. And so that's literally the only thing that
Surely, I know that back then it wouldn't have been like modern French gastronomy, but surely he thought the food was good.
No, he said like he said that.
Or was it just casseroles back then?
Dude, France was like going through one of its worst recessions.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
because it's a bit of a I'm not going to stick on the food for too long, but it's a bit of a misnomer that how everyone's like French food's super sophisticated. That's more of a modern thing. Like traditional country cooking is like bean stew, duck. That's basically it. It's very rustic, so it's probably shit.
I mean, it's just kind of like with affluence. It comes
exactly.
Like, better food.
With affluence, exactly. Okay, so that's hilarious.
Anyway, so like, so he was saying like he would tell people because he was sent on a mission by one of the royals in India to go meet with the King of England or some shit, right? So he would tell people in France that I've been sent on a mission and I'm going to England. And they would take this like really seriously and they were very nice to him. They would say, oh, because, like diplomats, I guess they would qualify as diplomats, were like, even in like, olden times, were looked at as like, a profession that was very admirable.
And also good PR agents.
Yeah, good PR agents, and you want to have like the best sort.
Yeah.
And so he was saying like the people in France were very like nice to me and they would like treat me as hospitably as their pockets possibly could, which was not much to say.
Right. I didn't realize also, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so I'm just saying, like, it's just as a side note, that this was the pre-revolutionary France.
Gotcha. Not great.
Yeah, not great. And then all of a sudden, with Napoleon and his, like, military conquest, they become the best power in I
kind of want to see this movie with you. We'll see it together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to watch it together.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I'm going to watch it. I think it releases day after tomorrow.
Well, let me know, because it would be cool. I would like your take after the film too. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
And Napoleon had like okay, so they say Napoleon, because of this, like, these military strategic advantages that they had, they started beating everyone in Europe. They burned Moscow. They went to like
that is crazy. Russia.
They defeated everything. Napoleon was like he was undefeatable. You know what the strategy for Prussian government was to defeat Napoleon?
No.
Napoleon had 3 corps, like, so he had 3 separate like battalions or whatever. One of them was obviously headed by him, and then the other 2 were headed by these other generals. Their strategy was just try to like not fight with Napoleon's. Just go for the other guys.
Fuck.
That's how bad it was.
Jesus.
But then, like, the thing is, 10, 15 years later, all of these countries that were fighting, once they like start getting hammered by France, they realize they have to change their military.
Yeah.
Because, dude, their military, you know how they used to run their military? The idea, the Prussian military was, they would go conquer a place, they would enslave people, they would force them to fight for them, which created huge drawbacks because all the soldiers wanted was to abandon the military. And the idea was that if you abandon during war, before the enemy kills you, your officers behind you will kill you.
Jesus.
So you're better off for survival to fight the enemy than to like abandon.
Shit.
And every time, like even when like they had to go to the bathroom, there'd be like a huge corps of officers that would go with them to ensure that they don't go up.
Yeah.
So this is the army that these guys had.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Napoleon had an extremely motivated citizen army because nothing to do with him, the French Revolution. All of a sudden, the aristocrats were gone, the nobility is gone.
There's kind of a
average people are becoming, officers. So their motivation,
narrative almost.
Their motivation is like how the Australian military's motivation would be. We're protecting our country, not like, fuck, I'm gonna wait for this guy to look away and then I'm gonna run.
Yeah.
So he was just beating everyone,
right.
And then like 10, 15 years later, the rest of the powers like Russia, what was Prussia, then Germany, Austria, they all realized we've got to change. If we don't change the way we fight, we're doomed. Yeah. And so they actually like abolished peasantry to a certain extent. They like tried to like put in some reforms that France was doing. Yeah. And actually like in 15 years they bridged the gap, and then all of a sudden their army had become pretty good where they started defeating France as well, and that was the end of Napoleon.
Oh, so Russia was the one that sort of
Prussia.
Prussia. Well, what the hell was Prussia?
Germany.
My bad. This whole time I thought you were talking about Russia. Okay,
So
Prussia.
Russia and Prussia.
Yeah,
Prussia
Germany.
is the old name for Germany.
Why
essentially.
were they called Prussia?
Yeah, I don't know why they changed it. I think like because of the empire, like they're it's how like Ottoman Empire became Turkey.
Yeah.
It's like when you lose certain geography and you sort of want to set in a new nation state, then you
okay,
change
sorry.
the
So it
names
was
or whatever.
Germany. Because I was gonna say, I always think of the Russian. If you look at history, all the world wars have weighed on Russia. Russia's the one that wins the wars. Russia were on
Well,
World
they
War
lost
One.
the First World War.
Oh yeah, wait, were they in World War One? Were they no? Oh yeah, the Axis. They won. Wait, who were they fighting for in World War One?
Tsar was fighting against England and like the Allies.
Oh my bad. Okay, so just one for one. My bad.
Yeah, that's why communist revolution happened, because they were so weakened by the loss of the First World War.
Gotcha. Okay, my mistake. But yeah, okay. So Germany, Prussia were the ones that. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then they had learned like how and Napoleon, one of his first defeats after like decades of utter dominance, when he was like told that this loss, and his comment was, "The beasts have finally learned something from me."
The beasts.
Yeah,
Were they? You know how like Prussians were once the Gauls. I think they were the Gauls,
yeah.
and they were known as like, ravenous savages.
Yeah.
So is that why?
Gaul, I think like it's between like some French and German areas where I think Gaul.
Oh, okay. Because
anyways, yeah.
but did he refer to them as savages because they were kind of more savage?
Yeah, dude, they were all savages because
Yeah.
the Gauls were like in competition with Rome, which at the time was this like beacon of enlightenment and shit. So anything for them would have been savages.
Yeah, of course.
It's like Americans saying that Afghans are savages.
Yeah. I get you. Okay, so that's what he said. Okay, interesting. So where are we at in the timeline?
So
now?
at this point, Napoleon is now starting to lose some of the battles because the rest of them have caught up.
Yeah.
And all of his like reforms that he brought in are now being basically copycat by other places in Europe.
Yeah.
And so the bridge and so then there's this whole thing of like they say that there are two leaders in the modern history who are like who had maniac foreign policy, in the sense that they only had attack as an option. One of them is Hitler.
Oh, okay.
And the other one they say is Napoleon.
Right. So he didn't even consider a situation where he'd need to be on the defense.
No.
Yeah.
He just had attack.
Yeah.
Now there's theories to it. Some people say that he was he was a maniac. Some people say, look, if you were in his position, you'd be doing the same thing. Either you wait another 15 years for Prussian, Russian, Austrian armies to rearm themselves before they attack you, or you go in for the kill before they can do that. And so he went in for that. And they say that you shouldn't compare him to Hitler because he might have killed a lot of people in war, but he wasn't like doing ethnic cleansing of a particular race for, racial. So he's like, that angle was missing in him, so you can't consider him to be a genocidal like Hitler was. But either way, the rest of the Western powers, like the European powers, including England, by this point had thought of Napoleon as Hitler. Was hell-bent on like utter domination of Europe, which was kind of true. And, like I said, there's like different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
And so they wanted fucking Napoleon out of the picture.
Right.
And so by just when France had just started to lose, there's the Battle of Waterloo, and then post that, they wanted to get rid of Napoleon. And so they picked Napoleon. Once they came to a position of power, they sent Napoleon to an exile.
The French?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because,
why?
Because they had also realized that they weren't militarily like superior anymore.
That's so harsh.
An idea of like a leader who was just like hell bent on like conquering other lands.
But it's quite harsh to be like, you've done so well, but you fucked up a bit once.
Well, this isn't the end of his story. So he goes to he's been like exiled into this island. I forget the name of the island, where he's like essentially in prison. He escapes the prison. He comes back. By the way, he's no one. France is being run by other people. Right. He comes in. He comes back to France. He escapes. The army is looking at him, and they're supposed to be. And he says, famously, can't remember the exact. I'm paraphrasing, but he says, are you going to fight for them or are you going to fight for Napoleon, the guy who leaded you, who won so many battles for you? And then all of a sudden, that fucking people that were supposed to fight for him, they come behind him.
Yeah.
And he's about to go. Eventually, he loses. And he's
so they go, we're not
exiled
fighting
into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where, like, he'd have to swim for 30 years to even come back.
Oh, so they don't help him.
Or, like, somewhere else. He was exiled far, far away.
Right.
But it was kind of cool. He had, like, this little part of resurgence where, like, these people were pointing guns at him, and then he says, fight with me. I am your leader. And then all of a sudden people went back behind him to like actually fight for him.
Oh, to fight for him.
Fight for him.
Oh, and then what happened?
If they lost, all of them lost.
Oh, so he did have support, but they lost.
Yeah, and by that point, dude, like Napoleon was like a fat man who couldn't ride horses because he had extreme hemorrhoids.
Oh no, not hemorrhoids,
which is bad news for a general.
Those things sound fucked.
Yeah.
From all the horse riding?
Well, I don't
Is
know
that how you
what
get
it
him?
would be.
Who
It
knows?
could be a whole host of things. Some people speculate he had stomach cancer, but he actually just had like really bad hemorrhoids.
Shit. So
And that was the end of
that was
Napoleon. He had a very short stint, but for a brief
man.
moment, he was the talk of the world.
You know what I thought you were going to say?
Everyone was like afraid of him.
I thought you were going to say like, and then guess what happened? They fought for him and he beat the French army.
That's
and then he
what
ruled for
people-
10 more years or something, but that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
So
That's how that would have been a good story, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen that way.
So they exiled him to in the middle of nowhere and then he
And then
died
just
there?
died there, yeah.
Oh,
Writing
man.
about the fact that how he's actually French and not like his Corsican.
Right.
should not be
Yeah.
taken into account.
It's so crazy thinking about how different. It just freaks me out that Napoleon lives on the same planet as those two brothers that made out on TikTok. You know what I'm talking about?
Dude, the weirdest thing
Like
was
it was just different. Like now I'm like, oh, my leg's still. It does still hurt and it's still fucking, it's still like bleeding and shit. But like, back then they've probably been like, cut it off. It's infected, cut it off. Like, God, they're just like different breed of people.
dude, that he was, and he actually, his other thing was, again, he wasn't afraid of dying, and he was extremely lucky, bro. He should have been dead.
Yeah.
There were so many of those battles where he didn't care about. This is why people think he was like, he could be compared to Hitler, because he didn't care. He never cared about like people dying, including himself in
Right,
wars.
kind of crazy.
It was like, yeah, that's how it goes.
Was
like,
he kind of like a Caesar-esque character?
Yeah, he was. But Caesar, it's different because like he really rode the wave of the revolution, which Caesar didn't have.
Right. Yeah.
So Caesar was essentially trying to boycott the aristocracy and try to get support from the general public.
Yes,
right, that was his game.
Yes.
Napoleon was in a world where the aristocracy had already been eliminated.
Yeah, he was just there.
And so he was like just representing so he was kind of like Caesar.
I
They say like people remember Napoleon because of his like changes to war tactics and his military.
I mean, he must have
capability.
been a intelligent man. Was he educated?
Yeah, he was. He was educated. Because he was part of the nobility of Corsica. After the French took over, one of the things they used to do was like take noble kids and send them to mainland France to get them educated in French schools and shit.
Yeah.
And there's like accounts of how even at wars he would like have essentially a library that he would travel with the army, and that was not just to like read up on shit, but it was mostly like to understand maps and stuff.
Yeah,
which also kind of made them good. So he wasn't an intellectual, but he was a educated, smart man. He was, particularly when it comes to like military tactics, extremely smart.
What did his parents do?
I don't know. Actually,
Nobility,
some shit like that. So they weren't like poor.
I'm keen for the movie. I mean, it looks very interesting. You know, did he have some like strange personality quirks? Because like the picture, the movie poster, he's like kind of like draped over like a thing like this, kind of just being like this, kind of being like, I'm not like that, but sort of being like, I am great, but also relaxed.
He married he was extremely in love with an absolute gold digger, which is I guess a Josephine.
Right.
She was married to someone else, and then he married her later, and she had the reputation of like she did not care about him at all. She didn't. She was just out there. She was one of those gals that had those personalities that like people fall in love with.
Do you reckon she put out?
Yeah, she probably did pull it out, but she also put out with like heaps of other people.
Right.
And Napoleon was often told that she's like having affairs with people, and he was a bit of a simp.
Well, yeah, it happens.
I think they made a movie called Napoleon in Love back in the day as well, which is about his weird relationship with Josephine.
Right.
He was a very short man.
Really?
And he was the Donald Trump of its time in the sense that
right.
in France, obviously, he was very respected because he was the emperor and shit. But the rest of the world used to like make caricatures of him.
Yeah.
And they used to like talk about like how he has a small,
syndrome,
how like
small man syndrome,
small dick syndrome or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
That he wants to like rule the world because he's so small and he has inferiority complex.
Yes.
So like they would make fun of him all the time everywhere.
Yeah, interesting.
They would do like plays where he'd be like the fucking buffoonish character.
Yeah.
In fact, like the term boogeyman comes from Napoleon Bonaparte.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Because like when he was like kicking everyone's ass in Europe,
the boogeyman's coming.
Holy
shit.
And then boogeyman became like this joke because
in terms of like, not to get into it, but in terms of the like geopolitical situation of Europe, like once he was put in the ocean, basically, did France make like because after World War II, Germany was massively punished. After World War I, actually, that's why World War II, you could argue, happened. They were massively punished, like tariffs, sanctioned, isolationists, couldn't compete in the market of Europe. Is that what happened to France after Napoleon, or no?
No, not nearly as bad, because like part of him sending him to exile and kicking him out was like the ruling class of France at that point decided.
So they were okay.
He's a used bullet.
At what point did Europe stop fighting wars with each other?
Second World War, bro.
That's where it stops.
Yeah.
Well, you could say it's happening now, right? Again, with Russia and Israel's not Europe, but like,
there was like up until like Second World War, it was just. They were constantly fighting. Even the times of peace was just times of rearmament. So was this both empires that were constantly fighting each other would go through 10 years of stability, but they're both just like trying to rebuild their army so that they can go back at it again.
Was this the same situation globally?
No.
Okay.
Europe was particularly volatile.
So bizarre. Always. There's something defect in.
There's periods where there's instability and stability. Like you could argue Europe is now. It's just had this like fucking 70 years of stability. So they're really paying for their dues and like in a good way. Good on them.
Yeah.
But so you'd have like periods of stability and instability everywhere.
Yeah.
But the amount of constant fighting that happened in Europe was not the case in Asia. And let's be real, when we talk about that kind of world, we're talking about what was then the known world, which is Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia.
Yes.
That's all of the world that
that's all there was. That was before Columbus.
Yeah, and it was like this was before, Australia was found and and the North and South America were found.
Right.
So this was because some historians sort of credit like this constant instability in Europe to the idea that all nations are equal.
Wow, because they were like, we have to chill.
No, because like all nations are equal. That means, okay, this is the thing I think I've talked about on the pod before. This is like a comparison between East Asia, China, Korea, Japan, and Europe. So in East Asia, the idea was that there was a hierarchy, an explicit hierarchy, where China was at the top of this hierarchy, and then there were all of these other countries that were so.
What's changed?
A king of Korea could not be the emperor because the emperor could only be from China.
Right.
So what would happen was once the Korea had a king, the king would be sent to China, and basically say, take the blessings from the Chinese emperor, and as a result, the Chinese would never really have any issue with it. They would say, we don't care who you have as a king, as long as you know that we're the emperors. That's all we care about.
Yeah.
And so actually it was a remarkably stable period. There were some periods of violence, but as a whole, it was extremely stable because there was this explicit hierarchy.
Yeah.
In Europe, on the other hand, there was no explicit hierarchy. So a small country would think that they're equal to a big country.
Gotcha.
But obviously there is a hierarchy.
Yes.
There's like, when you're Napoleon and you're like this France, your Austria is obviously lower.
Yes.
But they have this idea that we're not lower.
Yeah.
And so they're constantly fighting with each other because of this equality.
Well, that's kind of what probably you could say almost came from the French Revolution. It was like the idea of like separate church from state, fraternity, whatever those things are, fraternity, blah, 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 the other one. Like it's like...
It always existed, man. This idea, Europe always had this idea, equality idea that like I'm not worse than you. Like always existed. It really got solidified in the Enlightenment era.
Yeah.
And those guys were saying like...
But it's because of the... Jordan said this too once. It's because of the geography of Europe, because a tiny little enclave in like northern Italy could... I don't know, bankroll some sort of new industry that could potentially make them the richest country in Europe. You know what I mean? Like it's like pockets. I think that's probably why they were like, you can't write off like, I don't know, Portugal, because Portugal's a good example. They were like a huge, what do you call it? Economy. They took over half the world. So it's like you couldn't write someone off by their influence, because it's like, who knows?
Yeah, particularly because like, England is a fucking tiny place.
Yeah, exactly.
The UK, and they have
crazy.
Like the biggest empire in the world.
Yeah. Probably. Are they still counted as having the biggest empire? Like,
yeah, they're number one.
Yeah.
You know who's number two?
America.
We're very close.
Oh, wait, in Europe? In Europe?
The world.
America.
Britain had the biggest empire. That's why they used to say the sun never set on the British Empire.
Yeah. America.
They had, but what's the second one that was actually close and a lot of people don't even know about?
It's got to be. It's not US? Okay, let me guess.
US never had an empire that way.
Right. Are you talking about in Europe or the world?
So you know how they say Alexander the Great, he conquered most of the world and stuff?
Yeah.
There's been heaps of empires like that.
Yeah.
The second one,
Rome.
Genghis Khan, the Mongols.
Fuck. You know what's funny? I was going to...
Without finding the US, South America, and Australia.
Dude, I was going to just randomly mention Genghis Khan because surely he has the biggest death toll in terms of people he killed. Globally.
Yeah, a lot of people argue that, yeah. It was the biggest empire in the world, so the death toll had to be big too.
Dude, was it just all that yak milk? How did he do it?
He had like a very, very simple philosophy.
Rape?
No.
What?
He would... By the way, this was a time when everyone was like, whoever became powerful, they would conquer, right? His thing was, accept me as your ruler and as the apex emperor of the world.
Jesus.
If you do that, nothing happens to you.
Right.
You get to keep doing your work. The noble,
Really?
he says the same. You get to keep practicing your religion.
Really?
If you want to fight, we will not just kill you. We will kill each and every family member of yours and their relatives. We will burn your entire town down to rubble. Kill everyone if we have to. So you choose.
Isn't that's I mean, it's
Can
effective.
You fight?
That's effective.
Dude, it was so effective.
Jesus.
It was so effective.
But Mongolia.
That's why, it was so effective.
Is it because the
people would just accept them?
But Mongolia is naturally has a natural defense because of its mountains, right?
Mongolia doesn't need to be defended. It's got nothing.
How the fuck? It's insane. How did his reign come to an end?
Generational, and then eventually he was actually more than Napoleon. He was a very, very enterprising person who had unified everyone.
Really?
And then eventually his empire got broken into pieces when he died, his sons, and then there was mismanagement, and then the others by that point had caught up and they started attacking them.
You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see a animation of the world map in terms of just colors, in terms of who dominated. So it'd be Rome, Greece, Rome, Mongolia,
they do have
France.
Those.
Do they?
Yeah.
I got to look at that because it's you would think Hollywood would lead you to believe that, it is possible for there to be a dominant power globally that just, owns the world. And some could say that's what
it was. The U.S. was.
Well, some could say that that's America.
Yeah, particularly after the fall of Soviet Union, up until I would say now.
Yeah, up until
when now we're moving back into this multipolar world.
Yeah,
U.S. was that. There was just no one that could even.
Yeah.
Everyone combined didn't even come close. So like,
it's so strange that
truly
America
hegemonic.
got to that point. Because you'd think it'd be, I don't know.
America's in the best position to be in.
Yeah, it is. It's isolated. It's got
So isolated,
resources.
extremely resourceful.
Yeah.
It would have been shocking if America never got into that point.
It's quite interesting that England managed. It's just fascinating. Like, would it be unbelievable that Mongolia just held on till now? Would that even be possible?
Man.
Yeah, no. It's fascinating, that stuff, man. It is fascinating.
It's also like, actually, while I was reading up on Napoleon, I actually came across this. Usually there's like, in technology, there's these giant leaps that happen every now and then. And the rule is that when that, like Napoleon was one of them, he brought like this giant leap into military and how people fight wars. Every time that happens, you can never predict when it's going to happen and what it would be. But what you can almost always tell is that whoever was the ruling military before that will not be the one after it.
Yeah, tech plays a big part, doesn't it?
And so US, it seems like will be there forever. But when that next, and we don't know what it is. People think it's like
China.
Information systems.
Oh, the next
it's like
technology.
what it would be that will change the
Lasers.
rules of the game of war.
But
whenever it will come, and it will come at some point,
I think
America will not be the ruling power then.
I think we reached that ceiling with nukes. Unless there's a way to disarm nukes, then that'll be the next winner.
Yeah, but nukes is what you brought US to that position.
That's true, but like I just don't see.
Almost, yeah.
I don't see. Maybe that's just because it hasn't been made. But I don't see anything surpassing nuclear weapons.
It's got to be something to do with like artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
and data systems.
that's true.
It's not about like the raw power. It's like completely paralyzing your opposition. So imagine a scenario.
You know what it is? It's the information war. Don't you think that's what it is?
It is, but that's like fucking the basic version of it.
Right.
There's like some other. I think what could be, again, you can never predict this, so I'm most certainly going to be wrong about this. But I think there could be a point where, like, let's say U.S. and China are about to fight a war, and they're prepping their nukes and stuff.
Oh, God.
And then one country has the capability of shutting everything. You know how the Optus outage was?
And
Imagine that times 100,000 on core things.
Fuck.
And so when one country has the capability of just completely paralyzing the other country, I think that will be the next step of warfare.
That will be it. And no one.
And everyone's trying to develop that capability, and everyone's trying to develop the capability of avoiding it, but we don't know who gets what at the end of it.
And who would have thought that in the end it was Sri Lanka?
Probably not.
That is absolutely it. Because the Optus thing showed me that it's like everyone was just like, I can't communicate with you. I'm basically digitally dead. I can't communicate with you. I like. It was like a big issue. It was like I can't.
Yeah, but you didn't have that problem, did you?
No, because I had Labara.
Exactly, boy. Dude, my brother was so fucking happy when that was happening.
Yeah, dude, same too. I was just like messaging away. I'm like, la 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 la, you know, like.
Yeah, I was like, too, and he was like, hey, call your wife. I was like, why? He's like, call her. I was like, she's at work, and I was like, call her. And I called her. I was like, oh, it's not working. He's like, because all of Optus is down. I was like, why are you so happy? He's like, we're gonna get more customers, baby.
Hell yeah, Labara. Doesn't work 99% of the time, but that 1% of the time when there's an outage with the opposing companies, you're golden.
Catch me that.
Yeah, one more. Sweet hit.
But yeah, anyways, so the point was, I'm excited to watch Napoleon.
Dude, you and me both.
I'm gonna watch it this weekend.
Can I maybe come?
You can come.
You're not gonna see it in like where
I'm gonna see it with my missus.
Yeah, that's cool, but you're not gonna see it in like the hood.
I mean, it would be easier for me to watch it in the hood, but where do you want to watch it?
Nah, I don't want to drag you out. We'll talk. I just want to see it. Also, I mean, let's be honest, like, it's kind of dumb. We could just see it separately and then I could fucking call you straight away. What difference does it make?
Doesn't make a difference.
But I definitely want to see it. I'm like, I love those period historical movies that aren't like Braveheart and that have that sort of like 90s tinge to it, where it's like that sort of like fast shutter speed where everything's blurry and there's people getting killed and then there's like the guys looking around and like it's like so like melodramatic. Maybe this will be the same.
Did you
but
watch Alexander?
No. About
Oliver Stone's Alexander,
No.
starring Colin Farrell. I haven't seen it either. People say it's a bad one.
I haven't seen it.
But I hope that you had seen it so you can tell me if it was any
Nah,
good
I
or
haven't
not.
seen it, but look, I think it'll be cool. I mean, look, put it this way. This is it's such a dumb way to judge a movie, but the poster looked cool.
And the trailer does too.
I saw it. It looks
and
good.
Joaquin Phoenix, Ridley Scott.
I mean, come
I'm
on.
hopeful.
That's going to be the shit, dude. That's going to be amazing. Like, those two together. I mean, Ridley Scott hasn't done a movie for so long. He's only been a producer. Like, he produced Blade Runner 2049. He wasn't there.
He made Gladiator.
That's an awesome movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I might have to rewatch that before.
Dude, it is a really good one, but you know what's weird about that? Every time someone else watches it, I think it's a good one. But it's one of the good ones. There's
Which one?
many out there. Gladiator.
It's awesome. Like,
But anyone that I've ever shown this movie to for the first time, they've come out saying that was one of the most incredible films I've ever seen.
I haven't seen
And
it
I've
since I
always
was like
wondered,
10.
Is that even true?
I don't know. I have to rewatch it. One of my friends loves it. I have one friend that like, he's like the ambassador of Gladiator, and maybe it's just because of him
People love it.
that I think it's good.
But
But
a lot of people, it's their favorite movie ever.
I have to rewatch it. Like, is it based? It's not based on a real guy, eh? Nah, it's a gladiator. It's based on a gladiator.
No.
Yeah,
I think Spartacus is.
Spartacus. Yeah,
That was a real slave.
I mean,
thing.
even the idea of the game, whatever they were, the gladiators and the games they had, the death games they had in Rome was like mental, dude. I mean, it's no different to it's kind of like sport now, but like you die. But you know, they were like considered like sports stars.
Yeah, and like the idea that slaves becoming rulers seems so far fetched and like
That happens.
such an underdog. Dude, it happened all the time in history.
Really?
Particularly, I don't know about like European history as much because I haven't looked into like ancient or like, you know, pre-modern European history as much. But like, dude, Asian history, subcontinent, India. At one point, bro, if you think it was a requirement to be a slave in order to be a ruler, because all of them were.
That's amazing.
All of them were at some point slaves.
It just shows that humans love an underdog story. They love a coming of age story. It's like he was shit and now he's the shit. You know, like it's just so funny.
Wow, what a quote. Mislav Belabragic. He was shit and now he's the shit.
Napoleon, Mislav are just on the same level.
Truman has one of those.
Oh.
From being shit to the shit.
What, really?
Yeah, dude.
Truman. Was Truman the one in Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Truman
one that was like, get
the
that
one in
crybaby out of here.
Yeah.
The Truman was the one that was like, had no business being president and just got
Yeah,
there. That
yeah,
you
yeah.
told me that story.
I've
I
told
learn
you
a lot
that-
from you, dude.
Dude, that's a very interesting story too. Guys, check out Truman's story. We did a podcast ages ago. I wouldn't be able to tell you the title, but his story is also pretty incredible. It's truly an underdog story. And if you're like in your mid-30s, sitting at home, everyone telling you, including in your mom's basement, everyone telling you you're a loser.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Truman was you, and then he dropped nuclear bombs.
You
on
too
Japan.
could kill a lot of people needlessly. Do you know anything
Just need
about?
to make the right friends.
Do you know anything about the world famous ex-president Ike Eisenhower?
Not so much.
Short term, right?
Not
One
not
termer.
so much.
I know this is a jump as well, and like whatever, we're just doing this. I know that when it's me and Ali on this pod, I don't know if it's the same with you and Jordan. But it's always just like, just define what you mean by the term crisis. I know it gets to like CNN, but like, what was I going to ask? Fuck, I forgot.
Dude, I want to ask you something.
Damn it.
Let's switch some gears.
I forgot.
Yeah. Elon Musk is getting cancelled.
Why?
So you know his platform X is being demonetized. So
Why? What happened?
IBM, Apple, all the big companies have paused their advertising on it because Elon Musk is anti-Semitic. Apparently,
what? That's surprise. That seems. What's the proof of that?
So okay, I actually
Tell
have it
me.
here. So essentially, what happened was that there was some conspiracy theory that was being pushed on Twitter
Yeah.
about like Jews being responsible, being like the villains of Europe and like killing Europeans or some shit. and Elon Musk retweeted that. I'm gonna like
show me it.
confirm this. Okay,
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
up. Okay, this is what it says. Billionaire CEO wrote on Wednesday that a tweet accusing Jews of hating white people was the actual truth in inverted commas. The White House has condemned Musk's statements on Friday morning. So there was some like tweet where
I thought he was Jewish. What the fuck? He's South
Well,
African.
nah.
He's South African.
not all South Africans are Jewish.
I just thought they were.
Very, very few of them
I
are.
thought they all were.
A lot of them in Australia are Jewish. You're right,
That's
actually.
why. That's why.
Because they escaped after Nelson Mandela.
They bailed.
They bailed, bro. I actually spoke to one.
Oh my God.
I actually spoke to a guy I met who was like a South African and Jewish.
Right.
And his family had left South Africa after the apartheid ended and came to Australia. And I asked him, like, what's your view on Nelson Mandela?
Yeah, terrorist.
And be real.
He
about
said
it.
terrorist.
And he was like, okay, I'll have to give him credit for the fact that he forgave everyone. That was epic because people really hated him and they had imprisoned him. But other than that, he fucked up the country. He just ruined it. He got all these non-deserving people to come into positions of power, and look at it. It's a basket case. Hence, we came to Australia, and now we live in Dover Heights and have a mansion. Life was tough.
It's like, that's the situation. There's no gray area. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's black and white, this one. It's
But
cut and
to
dry.
give him credit, I asked him to be real.
And he was being honest.
He was being real. So, like,
he
you
was
know,
being,
no hate for that.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Being honest, maybe, not real.
Yeah, so Elon Musk is being canceled, and now the
So he
Israeli lobby.
Wait a sec. Let's pump the brakes here. He said that all Jews hate white people. Dude,
He
Jews,
didn't say that. He didn't say that. There
What did
was
he say?
a
What did he say?
tweet by someone else who alluded to this. I can't find
Right.
the tweet, obviously, because it's been taken down.
But dude, most Jews are white as well. How can that even be? How's that even a statement?
Man, I don't know. I think it comes from, like, you know how Europeans think like Jews killed Jesus and shit, like the
Well,
OG
they
actual
did.
anti-Semitic
They did.
shit. No, they didn't.
Jewish people killed Jesus. Jesus.
No,
They didn't. The Romans did.
killed Jesus.
Oh, I thought it was the Jewish
people might have helped.
Oh, it was the
'Cause they
Romans.
didn't like him
I
either.
okay, I thought it was.
But like, it wasn't like, it's kind of
okay.
like a
I didn't know that. My bad. I don't know.
That's also considered anti-Semitic, and that was
Oh,
actually kind of
shit.
true because it's not even true.
Oh, okay. My bad. I've been fact checked. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't mean it in a like screw 'em way. I
no,
just
it's
didn't
fine.
know
It's
that.
fine. Like, there's
Yeah.
one of those conventional wisdoms, and I think he said,
Right.
I
Right.
can't find the tweet.
So that's
and he
that's
said,
another. That's
I
another.
mean, it's the actual
conspiracy.
truth.
Yeah.
This
yeah,
comes
yeah.
in the backdrop
But-
of Elon Musk
Yeah.
getting hammered by the Israeli lobby in the U.S.
Yeah.
to like because anti-Semitism is rife on social
Right.
on Twitter.
But it's rife on both. Isn't like hate rife on both sides of the argument.
I think from Elon Musk's perspective, he's saying that if you're only going to focus on like the extreme fucking conspiracy Twitter handles,
Yeah.
and every time someone tweets, you're going to like
Yeah, of
complain to me about
course.
it.
It's a cesspool.
It's like it's hard to control this shit.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he was like kind of frustrated with
Right.
the Israeli lobby.
Gotcha.
And then this came up and he probably was pissed off and he said, I mean, it's the actual truth. And then shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And now he's like suing
yeah.
the
lobby.
Israeli lobby
Jesus.
for saying that Elon Musk and Twitter are purposely are like being anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
And he's saying that they're defaming me because
Dude, maybe this conflict will start World War III because I didn't think it would envelop the world like this so dramatically. Everyone has fucking like it's like I didn't think it'd have such a profound effect in America and Australia. It's just like, oh my God.
dude, it's out of their control now. Governments can't seem to control
Social
this thing.
media.
Social media
will
is
end the
just
world.
a beast of its own.
Because it amplifies. There's no common ground. Social media doesn't reward that. It rewards fighting and argument, and so it's I think it will be the downfall.
But it also makes sure that governments can't control the narrative.
which is good. But I would say it radicalizes people, both sides.
Definitely does.
It does.
Definitely does. There's
So-
positives and negatives to it, but like
yeah.
20, 30 years ago, if this Israel-Palestine war had happened,
no one would even talk about it.
No one would even because the media would be so controlled. In Australia, dude,
yes.
the ABC gets like its fucking
talking
like,
points from the government.
Yeah, the fucking intelligence community.
Yes, yeah.
And so like they'll be told exactly what to say.
That's true.
So there'd be people dying overseas.
Yes.
And we would like not even have a clue.
Yes.
Maybe people that have relatives over there that might have spoken to them like at some point have an idea.
I mean,
but like now everyone knows.
I was watching Chomsky and he was even saying that like there was apparently a peace deal put on the cards between Ukraine and Russia. Now that everyone's fucking forgot about that, but like Ukraine and Russia, there was a peace deal on the cards, and both parties were looking to come to a peace deal. And apparently, Chomsky was saying England said no, you can't make peace with Russia.
Dude, you know what's crazy about that?
What?
U.S. generals were telling the White House to go for a peace because there was this. I can't remember his name, but there's this like mean-looking U.S. general, this bald dude who looks like he eats babies, but he had such a good point. He was like right after around 2022, 2022, there was a brief period where Russia was actually losing from Ukraine, and there were certain key points that were captured by Ukraine. And his argument was this general. He was saying, and this was while Ukraine was negotiating with Russia, and he was saying that, look, this is the high point of this war. You should actually come up with a resolution right now, because if we continue with this war, the tables are gonna, the pendulum's gonna swing the other way. And once it swings the other way, a settlement that favors Ukraine is gonna be really hard to achieve.
And the general was saying that.
And the White House told him, nah, fuck you. So Zelensky comes to England and the U.S., the White House, and like the clowns in Downing Street, and says, "What do we do?" And both the U.S. and England tell, "Don't sign. We've got this. We're gonna beat them." And now, for all those people that like were criticizing me throughout 2022 when I was talking about this exact issue, saying like, "Look. Just because you're winning right now doesn't mean you're always going to win. You should try and go for a ceasefire. Talk this shit out." Trump had actually such better policy towards this. He was saying I would get Putin and I would get Zelensky in a room and I'd say, we need to stop people
This is bad. This is very bad. We can't do this. We can't have you fighting.
That's what Biden should have also done, because now it's not even, man, Russia is definitely in a superior position now. Some people will still argue against it, even now. And those people don't live in Ukraine.
See, this is the thing, right? This is what Chomsky was saying. And what Chomsky said was, this information wasn't even reported in the mainstream news across the world because they weren't allowed to report it, because the news only wants to report on negative things. They want bad things.
Bro,
they don't want good things.
We reported it. We talked about this throughout all of those videos.
I didn't even know that. Go
back to 2022.
I didn't even know that.
Go back to the podcast where Ukraine was actually winning and listen to what this podcast was saying. We were saying that. And yes, you're right. It wasn't being reported because obviously it was, man, the White House and the Americans and British.
They want the war.
They've just used Ukraine.
Yeah.
They've dangled it. First, they used it by like doing this like NATO bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
Caused
with
the
that.
war.
Yes.
And then when there was when there were negotiations and both parties were sitting down, they convinced Ukraine to keep going with the war and not come up with a resolution.
And by the way, anyone that says, "Oh, the NATO argument is a cop out," imagine if China was providing Mexico with weapons, arming them against the United States.
You don't even have to think about it. It happened. The Cuban Missile Crisis was that. U.S. was arming Cuba with nuclear missiles. And you know what happened?
Nearly World War III. Red line. Nearly World War III. It was the closest we've ever come
closest we've ever been to a nuclear. Because
to the end of the world.
The Americans were like, absolutely not. This is not, we'll kill you and die in the process if we have to.
Yes.
But you're not putting fucking nukes in our backyard.
And it's I'm sorry, but it's the same. Forget about nationality. On geopolitical lines, it's the same situation.
Yeah, and it's like just
it's
tragic.
But my point, what Chomsky's point was like, to go back to what you said about social media versus the mainstream media, it is a good thing because if it was just the mainstream media, the mainstream media doesn't report the. I didn't even know about that. I had no idea about that. So obviously having diverse opinions in media and social media in that respect is really good. But in the same respect, you get
By the way,
misinformation.
Do you want to hear something even more fucked?
Yeah.
Let's go back all the way back to when Angela Merkel was in power in Germany.
Yeah.
Nicolas Sarkozy was in power in France. And some guy who I can't remember the name of was in power in Ukraine. Way before the Ukraine war. This is when NATO was saying that we want to include Ukraine. That just started saying this.
Yeah.
This is like around 2010 onwards, somewhere around that. I'm getting my dates a bit mixed up.
That's all right.
But there was negotiations between Putin, Merkel, Sarkozy, and the Ukrainian guy to come up with a resolution over this whole thing of NATO and precursor to the Ukraine war.
Because Ukraine wanted to join NATO independently, didn't they?
Well, part of them did and part of them did, which is why in 2014 there was like this civil war in Ukraine as well.
Oh, okay.
And so this was just a precursor to this.
Yeah.
So all of them are talking to Putin. And we know this now because all of these leaders have commented on this and said exactly what I'm about to say. They were negotiating a way to come out of this. Later on, we find out, which Sarkozy and Merkel have both admitted to, that we were only using those negotiations as a pretext to arm Ukraine to eventually fight the war. They weren't interested in a resolution. Putin, on the other hand, was. And Putin later on, when he waged war against Ukraine, said that, how am I able to trust you when you did exactly this? You negotiated with me. I tried to convince everyone in Russia that we can come up with a resolution.
Is that true?
It's true. Merkel admitted this. It's on record now. And they only use that time to basically rearm themselves and rearm Ukraine to eventually fight with Russia. Which is why when the American ambassador to Russia once said, I remember reading this, he once said that he spoke with Putin and he said, verbatim, he said, you don't need to be afraid of Ukraine being part of NATO because US is a benign hegemonic power. We don't want wars. And Putin said, I don't believe you. And then he was saying, I wonder why he didn't believe me. He's like, why would he believe you when you're constantly fucking with him like that? If you go into negotiations with the man and later on openly admit that you only went into those negotiations to buy yourself time and you weren't earnest about it, why would he ever fucking believe you?
I didn't even know that. That is mental.
It's ridiculous, but
and like I think it does that show that everyone's military industrial complex calls the shots. Complex calls the shots because some might say, "Oh, the best defense is an offense." Some people say, "No. The only way to prevent wars is to attack first." And it's like, no, that's just not. It's way more risky it's way more risky risking actual war and they're in a war. It doesn't make sense. It's like being like, just keep punching someone till they die to save their life. It doesn't make sense.
Man,
and I'm not, dude. I don't like Putin. We don't love Putin. Fuck, dude. Like Russia is like it's a what I don't know, oligarchy. It's basically not a. I'm very glad I don't live under Putin and I'm not Russian, and I can imagine that it would be fucking hard, and it would be brutal. But like, you can't. America can't dictate who runs certain countries. You can't just say, I don't like Putin, so we're going to take him out. It's like, you can't do that. You can't do it. You have to have countries have to have some sovereignty, unless they threaten you first.
You know what a policy wonk would respond to that by saying?
Yeah, tell me.
But we can try.
And might end the world in the process. You know what I mean? Okay, it's crazy.
Yeah, like this. Okay, coming.
I mean, if that general said, take this deal, there should be no like second guessing. Like it's crazy that we're at a point now in the world where it seems like the leaders of the military-industrial complex are the most sensible ones. It was the same with Man Monus. No, not Man Monus. Sorry. Jesus. What am I talking about? What was his name? Mad Dog Maddock or whatever.
Mad Dog Madison.
Sorry. I don't know why I said yeah, that guy during Trump's presidency, and he had some pretty inflammatory rhetoric, in terms of war. Like he was saying, we'll carpet bomb Afghanistan and stuff. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure during Trump's presidency, and while he was in charge, he was de-escalating and saying...
Yeah, actually, it turned out Mad Dog, contrary to his name, was actually a very reasonable general.
Yeah.
Dude, a lot of U.S. generals are reasonable.
Well, but that's like...
It's the fucking CIA and sometimes, actually, often the White House.
The White House.
That is up to this fuckery.
It just makes me feel like Biden is another cookie cutter. In terms of international, I'm not talking about domestic policy. In terms of international policy, it seems like Biden is just another cookie cutter Democrat that wants like war by numbers and has this like 1990s perspective of like, we're gonna get freedom there, Jack. And it's like, dude, Trump has better international policy than you.
Dude, Biden has lost it, man. Biden like looked at a 6-year-old girl and said, "Are you 17?" I'm not even kidding. That also happened.
Are you serious?
He's gone mental. The only thing
I know Jordan's a big advocate of Biden, and I think he's done really well for like the Green Revolution. But like, dude,
I did see a funny clip of Joe Biden, which was like he was doing some speech, and in the audience someone fell, and then he stops. He's like, "Are you okay? Let the press know that wasn't me."
I mean, that is hilarious. That's fine. At least he's got some like, yeah.
So he still has a few more brain cells.
Yeah, that's good. But like,
he's just being Biden is just being maneuvered by the people around him.
Yeah.
He's like Weekend at Bernie's or whatever that fucking movie was, Like,
I just look, but in terms of those points we're making, I feel like, in England can still think it can hold on to the glory days, and I'm like, I love the West. West is the best. I love it, but Russia, this is not, Stalin's. Sorry, this isn't like Boris Yeltsin isn't in charge. Russia is like the second world power, and you can't treat Russia. I think it's wrong to bully any country and install dictators and fucking kill their people. I think it's fucking abhorrent. But you can't treat Russia like fucking the Congo or something. Yeah. You can't do that. It's like it's actually insanity because it's like they have a little bit less nukes than America. Like what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah, but the Americans think that actually we can.
Maybe,
but because the risk isn't on them. It's not them that die. It's the Ukrainians that die.
Yes, it's not on them.
The Ukrainians are that are like, I guess we couldn't. Mislav was right.
But this is the crazy thing. Like, if you ignore Trump's domestic policy, he's like a good president internationally.
In many ways,
so it's like
foreign policy is far superior. So
like what?
Biden.
Like what is going
or
on?
Or even
here?
Obama's.
But what is? Yeah, I mean that's a crazy statement. But like, what is going on here? It's like you get to choose Biden, who's domestically and is gonna let's say for what I've heard, save the world in terms of energy, green revolution, all that kind of stuff. But then tries to fuck the world with nukes. And then you've got Trump, not that he's anti-nuclear, but like he'll destroy the world with his energy policy, but potentially will save it because he's just like, I've met Putin, he's a nice guy. It's like, that's the right attitude. Honestly, it is the right attitude. And Chomsky's
even him like mating Kim Jong-un.
It's huge.
Historic moment.
Dude, it just took the pressure off. It's like, the pressure valve is off. And you have to meet people.
Have to like give him some credit. I've seen like his video where he's literally just,
shaking
he's like
his
at
hand
the
and stuff.
DMZ zone and he walks by himself on the North Korean
badass,
side.
man, and they had a good time.
Can you imagine Biden was like, I'll just go to North Korea by myself.
Never. In many ways, Biden is still stuck in the 90s. He's still stuck in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's very weird. And I don't know. I want to say, like, what do you see happening? What's the solution? But it's almost too depressing, It's like, dude, like, I don't know. The thing that's scariest to me is that wasn't reported in the news.
Yeah, I mean, it was. You might have missed it.
Maybe I missed it. But what Chomsky was saying, it wasn't.
What wasn't? That there was
the Russia-Ukraine peace deal.
What was reported in the news was that there's negotiations happening.
Okay.
And while those negotiations were happening, I was constantly, there's so much fucking, I was constantly saying like, this needs to work out. And both U.S. and England should, UK should really try and get this to actually happen. Whereas, which we didn't know at the time what was happening behind the scenes. And we were saying, like, Ukrainians should accept some kind of a deal and end this war before it gets bad.
Yeah.
What we now know is that it was the opposite, where, like, the US and White House and the UK were saying, don't accept this. Do not accept this. We're going to win this. We're going to take over all of Ukraine. Because, obviously, if they had accepted a deal, they would have to give up part of Ukraine. But most importantly, they would have to establish Ukraine as a neutral state, which is what Putin was arguing. So it can't be part of the NATO. It can't be part of EU. That's essentially what it was.
Yes.
And the generals were saying that in the current situation, with our superiority at the moment, we might be able to get a favorable deal if we accept this.
Yeah.
Where Ukraine will be able to keep a lot of its even areas that Russia had occupied at the time. If Ukraine pledges neutrality, I think Russia would be willing to give some of those areas up.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of people in Ukraine that would be happy with that.
Yeah, certainly the Russian Ukrainians would be happy by that. Maybe not. And it's like, it's tragic, man. It's like, you would want a country to be able to decide if it wants to be part of Ukraine, or if it wants to be part of EU, or if it wants to be part of NATO. But in the real world, that's not how it happens.
But the thing is, look at a map. Now the only countries that are left to join NATO is fucking Mongolia and Russia itself. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, Ukraine is not Europe, and like I don't see it as Europe. And even if they, is Mongolia fucking Europe? No. Is like.
Hey, you know what is Europe?
What?
Israel. Israel plays the Euro Cup. They somehow lobby to be included in Europe.
Well, I mean, look, the thing is, Israel, they are basically Europe. Not where they are, but genetically they are.
Oh, don't say that, dude. That's considered to be anti-Semitic as well.
Really? Okay, I'm not saying.
Very, very touchy.
Here's the thing. Obviously, the Jewish people have a genetic connection to the area.
Just don't use those two words together. Genetic and Jews. Just trust me. You don't want to.
Okay, sure. I don't think it's contentious to say that. Okay, fine, whatever. But they have. Israel would say they have roots in Europe. They wouldn't be like, no. Of course they do. They feel European as well. Yeah. Look, there's no point in adding. We shouldn't talk about Israel Palestine.
We're out of time, anyways.
Yeah. End on that note, but yeah. Damn, one segment, but it was mad.
Yeah, one segment. No, Napoleon, Elon Musk, and Russia.
You're right. That's not one segment, but it was very geopolitical.
Very geopolitical. Anyways, thanks for those of you that are watching live.
Thanks for joining.
Almost 500 of you. We really appreciate you. Yeah. Jordan obviously wasn't here because he's not feeling too well. He's here. He's sleeping in the room right now.
He's literally asleep in a room. Right now. He's sick, so he couldn't make it.
We didn't want to get sick, and also we should probably give him a bit of a rest if he's sick anyways.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next week with the full crew.
And also, sign up to the Patreon if you want extra juicy update. Do we want to give
a sneak of what's happening in next episode, or should we keep it up on wraps?
We'll just say, all we'll say is we have some guests. We have some guests next episode. We'll say some old school friends of ours. That's all we'll say.
We're also famous.
So
make sure you watch that podcast because it's going to be very sticky.
Very sticky. And sign up to the Up Late for the real news.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.